I should be live. Don't see anyone in the chat right now, but I think people are coming, so I'll wait till I hear from somebody. Otherwise, I'll just chill here. I'm comfy. Let's see. Oh, let's do that. Still looks like just me, which is, I mean, I can talk to myself all day long. Hey, Philip Allen. How you doing? I think I got an email from you, right? Yep, I got some emails from you with some images. I can definitely look through those. Wait for a couple more people to show up, and then we'll get started. Never as many people in EU hours as in US hours. A lot of people in the EU use HueForge, but just not as popular. I guess, you know, language isn't all the same, etc., etc. I'm good. I am working towards translation. Oddly enough, my what I thought was my Chinese translation was Spanish, so I need to look at that. But it looks like I have some bugs in there, so which is expected. I expected this issue, so bug fixing and translations going on today. Still need to finish that video. I have a new end-to-end video. Hey, Fooly. Nice, awesome. You're not absolutely attending a meeting you really need to attend today? Might be a quiet day. You guys are going to get all kinds of questions answered. Hey, Keith, welcome. Yeah, that was... you might hear some background noise. I'm getting my HVAC system replaced today. It's always a good day, right? They were going to do it Thursday, but it's supposed to pour rain, so they said, can we do it today? And I said, sure, we'll get a working HVAC system. Yeah, translation is going to be interesting. Mostly it's just me not knowing some stuff, and there's some things that I got it sort of working, but it broke immediately because it was translating some things that shouldn't be translated. So like the filaments folder was being translated to filamentos, which is not correct. I need to be in the same folder name, so couldn't find the filamentos folder. So I need to make sure that it's like certain words aren't translated that are looking like they should be translated. So I'm limiting this build. So this build is just some bug fixes, no new features except for language. And there'll be an option in preferences to go pick your language. Right now it says Chinese, that's actually Spanish, and it doesn't translate immediately. You have to restart it. So still working on that. It's just started, but you know, trying to get that working. So I think it's important. I'm at the phase where probably half my orders are coming from overseas, from people who don't speak English. There's a lot of German users, a lot of French users, etc. So, okay. I think, yeah, that will be 9.1. That's what I have on the devlog. So, if you look at my devlog, which is devlog.thehueforge.com, I have I'll post it in the chat here, just a sec. I have that devlog's most recent article. It has known issues in 090 and then what's next, and it talks about how 091 is going to be very limited. I would really like, I'm going to the Japan RepRap Festival in June. Super excited about that. I've never been to Japan. And I would love to have at least a basic Japanese translation and other translations there. No, I'm fine, Fooly. I have DeepL, and I obviously have access to Google Translate. My first pass right now is Google Translate, but I'm trying to then give it to native speakers who know how to use HueForge, and get their input. Also, I don't have DeepL API. I just have DeepL local, so I need to do some more modification of the files to get it translated by DeepL. locally, or figure out how to upgrade to an API contract. I can't figure that out. Whisper, interesting. So yeah, so DeepL is supposed to be a good model. Of course, it's always hard when you're looking at these contexts where it's just like one word or two words, and so there's not a lot of language context for them to use for the translation. That's why I'm always trying to pass it to some native speakers when possible, when available. I've had a few people offer, which is nice. Okay, so it looks like we have some people online. Not a ton in the chat, but it looks like we have some viewers. Remember, if you do want to be part of the chat, you do need to be a channel subscriber for 5 minutes. So that's just a little bit of a spam blocking. So once you subscribe, you can then chat within 5 minutes. So let's get started. I'm going to start by just talking over some things that have been confusing to people, mostly due to the fact that they've moved. So things that were in 0.8.1 and are not here or are hard to find here. So let's start with the first thing. The obvious thing, sliders are gone. Color sliders have been hidden. They're still here. You can go up to Windows and turn them on. But I would argue, and Danny argued in his video, which you should see if you haven't, that they're not really serving that much of a purpose anymore. There's only one or two things that they show that aren't showed now, but almost everything you did can be done now from the cores, and they're really very functional. You can, obviously arrange your colors. You can drop new colors on here. You can do all the kind of slider operations you used to do. One thing it doesn't do is when you have two sliders on the same layer, it shows them but doesn't make them red. It doesn't indicate that this is a fault of any kind. So that would be one difference, is you have no fault indication there. You can spacebar to disable and spacebar to re-enable. On the lower sliders, you could spacebar to disable, but then if you moved off of it, you couldn't spacebar to re-enable. This one, you can spacebar for both. You can hit Z to make it move to 0, or you can hit delete to get rid of the slider. So you can do all the creation and destruction of sliders that you want here. You can also change the TD by hitting T while hovering over slider, and mouse wheel or arrow keys. That was added in 9.0, I think, the full build. Maybe it was and then you can hold shift and it'll be by 0.2 increments rather than 0.5 increments, which actually allows you to get every increment pretty easily. And then you can also hit TD down here or Alt T, and it'll turn all of your sliders TDs on and off. So they'll all come on. So these are all in TD mode, so you can change them all and turn them off. And then if you want to see where your layer swaps are, you can hit this ruler button or Alt M for measure or millimeters. Maybe millimeters is easier, and it'll tell you in millimeters what the layer height or what the layer value of each slider is. Not the layer number, but the millimeter height. And since a lot of us use height range modifiers and things, it's helpful to check the millimeter values. So that's all there. I don't even look, to be honest. A lot of people ask me about where the describe button went. The describe button is here. It's with the slider controls down here. It did move from the top area. It was over here with the wireframe and stuff, which didn't make sense. So it's down here with the slider, invert sliders, clear core history is your describe button. So that is still there, but I haven't used the describe button in forever. I just come into my thing and look at it, and if I need to, hover over and check what filament it is. So describe is one thing that people have been looking for. It's here. The default layout when you start up has model geometry as a tab with the filament library. And that's just because the default layout is set up for a very small display, a 1366 by 768 display. Hey Ajax, welcome. And so if you have a small display, it makes sense because this takes up too much room. You can't see any filament. But if you don't have a small display, if you've got a higher resolution display like I do, then it's nice to put it down here at the bottom and you get both of them over on this side. And then with no color sliders, you give a big giant window to look at your actual your work. So that's kind of a little bit too big of a step there. Maybe I need to come up with a smaller step there. Okay, so what else do I have that's important that people are missing? Mesh mode. Mesh mode, what's that? That's new. Mesh mode is new, but it's not new. It's just your luminance. Before it said luminance, and it was in the model geometry. Now it's mesh mode, which is a much better description of what this is. In previous it said luminance because all the original ones were luminance and it was different ways to calculate luminance. But once I added color pop and color match and color aware, or color pop, color aware, and color match, it no longer was straight luminance, and so it becomes less accurate, especially with color match. So now it's the mesh mode, how you're building your mesh. And then the other thing that people is new is the base thickness and blend depth. So your max height, there is no max depth anymore, though it is shown here. The max possible depth is 2.35 millimeters. That's your max possible depth based on these settings. It is your base thickness plus your blend depth. Okay, but the nice thing is that blend depth floats on top of base thickness. So if I have a blend depth of 1.75 and I decide, oh, I'm fooly today and I want it to be 2 millimeters thick, then it just moves everything and keeps the blend depth the same, and now we have everything up at 2.05 instead of 0.65. It just moved all the sliders up and the image didn't change. So you don't have to do any more slider moving. So that's why those have changed and are different names now. Hey, Alias. All right, so anything else? So any questions about things that you're looking for in 090 that you can't find or don't know where they are? I'd like to cover those things. There are a few new controls. Mostly the controls are the same, but there are a few new controls. The lit modes up here, Danny has a good discussion of those. The filaments having tags, being able to add tags to filaments. Danny talked about that as well, which are searchable tags, so you can tag things that meet with stuff that means to you, and then you can search on those. I mean, heck, you could tag them when they're loaded in your AMS. AMS 1, AMS 2, or whatever, and then printer 1, whatever, what's loaded in whatever printer you have, and then you could search on your filaments that are in your printer, and then work just from there if you wanted. Now, that would be a little bit more maintenance that you probably wanted to keep track of. So, the mesh core mode. Oh, down here is the mode on how the mesh core is defined. So there's different color match modes. So there's the default HSL, which can be useful in a couple cases, but mostly is not. CLab, that's the original CLab. It is slightly fixed from the previous version. The previous version had issues sometimes with greens and like whites matching when they shouldn't have. This has fixed that. There were some wrong coefficients and some linearization that wasn't being done correctly. But this one is a little bit more weighted towards the brightness of the image. So if you have darker regions, it's going to weight that brightness a little bit more. CLab 2 is an almost entirely color-based weighting. So it's a little more color accurate in general. And then dot product is the highest speed. This should be the fastest of the color match modes, and actually can be pretty good, especially when you have colors that are kind of near together. I default to CLab 2 now. That's what I use most of the time. So when you change the mode, it changes how it matches. You'll see like the default is much dimmer. It's matching the brightness a lot more. I mean, obviously we're just in grayscale. HSL is kind of a mess. For HSL, you actually need to come in here and adjust this is basically your grayscale separation. And then this one might need a dark outer. No, it's about the same. This is basically your grayscale separation there. This image doesn't really work with the colors I have in HSL. I would need real colors. CLab 1, and then CLab 2. You'll see that in CLab 1. See here, like we get much brighter back here. It's because it's matching the color more than it's matching the intensity, whereas this matches the intensity more. Both of those are useful. And then dot product is actually pretty good for how simple the algorithm is. It's got, at least for the brightness here, it's pretty much dead on. All the areas are where you expect them to be for brightness, more or less. So you just change those as needed. I generally run CLab 2 unless I need to do something else. All right, so I was going to go through this image real quickly. I've actually done this image already. But again, when you are HueForging color match, mostly color match, you want to look at how your colors logically stack up and where they are visually in the image. So if we look here, we can see that we have some dark blues and some dark browns, and they're kind of in the foreground and the background. And we have her black hair with like a greenish blue highlights to it. So the way I look at it, and then we have skin tones. So the way I'm looking at it is I would like to have that back wall with that yellowish and greenish in the bottom, in the background, and then up to the dark blue. That makes the most sense to come up that through greenish to blue, so you know, yellow, green, blue, and that should catch her shirt as well, or her top. And then I'm going to go to brown, and then from brown I'll come through to orange and then skin tones and pretty much be done at that point. And that way I will get a nice clean transition. I'll be blending up into the black. So the black's going to go in the middle. We'll switch over to the mesh core side, put the black in the middle. And then my plan is brown on top of black. So let me just grab a brown here. So that'll make the bar on top of the black. And the so then we'll disable this layer because it's always good to disable one layer. Though when you're coming into a dark image, you don't necessarily need to disable a layer. And we'll grab this dark shade. Like when you're coming from a dark to a dark, you don't necessarily need to disable that. We'll grab this shade here, and then we're going to bring a white to the bottom. Doesn't really matter which white we bring. So here we've already kind of gotten it basically separated. So this is always a good checkpoint. We have our blue greens mostly here, like more greenish than blue. Our green blues down here. It seems to include the shirt. It includes most of the stuff except for her arms, which are up in the top half, which is where we want them to be. So a lot of this is already in the right place, more or less. So now it's a matter of just picking colors that are going to finish that. So we can probably grab this blue here, increases TD a bit so we get more blend on it. So I hit T. I just always do this automatically. I hit T, and it's kind of just how much you want it, how to match. Like this is a very similar solid color in the image. So if I make this a 3, you see it splits into 2 colors, or a 4, it's then one color but it's darker. I kind of like the lighter color, so that's just why I picked it. It was nothing particularly specific that I was choosing. We're going to bring this like yellowish tan color in here to grab the like kind of greenish. This needs to be moved up. That should get us the back wall, most of the back wall, and it'll also get us parts of the shirt and stuff. And then we probably want this lighter blue in here for the shirt. There we go. So I'm not going to try to get too perfect on the bottom until I start working on the top. But you can see that I've got a lot of the colors at the bottom kind of already set. Maybe I'm not as dark blue as I'd like to be here. I'd like to have more of a greenish blue here, so I can bring that in here. But that stuff I can tweak later. And her hair actually even looks pretty good at this point. So now we want to move into her skin. We do have this like off color here, and then we're going to just grab skin tones. I don't even know if we need this white. We probably actually want this white just to be the brightest color of her skin, or of the brightest color of the thing that we want on the top. And I think actually her skin is the brightest thing we want on the top. So we'll just move this, might give it a little bit of TD. Oh, see, this is too much of the same color. There we go. So now we have her separated. There is a little bit of pink here that we're not catching. We could probably put this above to get a little of a pink blush on top of her skin. That'll be a little bit easier to deal with than trying to put it on the bottom, I think. But you notice here we grabbed the back wall, a lot of stuff down here that we maybe didn't want to grab. So let's get a little bit of that here so it stays in the background. We have some room to play with. There we go, we've moved it to the background. There. Okay, and the only thing we're missing here is maybe like this orangey color here. That would give us a little bit more of a coffee here. We'll get that down there, yeah. Or tea. You could argue that's tea for sure. So now we've basically got the mesh core built out. It comes down to how much we care about like the fact that this is kind of a bluish color in the image versus this actually looks fine. It looks like shadows. That's all we really care about. And it makes the coffee match a little bit better. Alright, so that's how I built the mesh core, and now it should be relatively straightforward depending on the colors you have to see how to build your color core, and then how many colors you want. There's some little artifacts here. We can come back and tweak those later if we need. Any questions on this? What I've done so far, like why I picked colors, or why I picked where to put them, things like that. Might actually be better to have this down here. No, I think it was better up here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pick colors. I'm going to come over to this side. Now, since these are all pretty much fake colors, I'm just going to go with the colors that are there. This color, I know that I'm going to use this Criminal Bruise Black, which is not actually available for anyone yet. It's something that I want to release, but I don't have it released yet. So we'll bring the white over. That one's real. We do need some sort of yellowish in here, and maybe a light green. Does it matter which black layer disabled? Yes, it does. That's an excellent question. All right, couple of good questions. Okay, so Sem asked, why did you disable a black layer? I disabled a black layer to make sure that we have 2 layers of black at 0.05 millimeters. 2 layers of black will make sure that it's black on your print. A 0.04 or 0.05 millimeter layer won't necessarily be black. It's real thin. You're going to get a little bit of bleed through. Not much, but a little bit. Now, since I'm blending up to a dark color and then to another dark color, it is less vital, but it's still really helpful in order to do that. And then it does matter if I disable the lower layer of black, then it's gonna match all the blacks to this layer, and it's gonna be right on top of this greenish color. So you might get a greenish shade of black. So you always want to disable the top layer of black, so that you get 2 layers, and it's the second layer that shows. Disabling makes that layer never be a top layer. It will never shown. How did I decide what colors to use? That's a really good question, Keith. Okay, so I looked at the image and I said, what are the major color components that I'm interested in, right? And I talked about it a little at the beginning. I wanted to go from like the light color of her shirt, which I could even like maybe match it better if I did this. The light color of her shirt, up through this bluish color and into these dark blues and black. So then I just grabbed kind of keystone marks along the way. If I could blend them, I did, but if it was hard to blend them, I would just grab and insert a non-blended version of that color. I'd say, oh, okay, well, I need to blend to get this color, or I can't blend to get this color, so I need to drop the new color in. So I just kind of grabbed them as they were necessary. And then, so that was basically what I was doing there. And then on the skin tones, the same thing. I just grabbed the skin tones. And here I just was tweaking because they were saturated. I was just tweaking them to be a little bit more blendy. So I was just grabbing skin tones and dropping them in to hit the points that I wanted. And you see she has this pinkish around the eyes and stuff that wasn't really being gotten. So I could even bring a darker one up here to get that around her lips and stuff. And that gives us an option to get kind of those shades where we would have trouble getting them otherwise. This is actually very purple. We could technically bring a purple up here instead. But I think that we're fine the way it is. Hey, Bearded Printer, welcome. So this is a 3TD, very dark green-blue. Obviously, I'm going to need to bring my white up. I don't have all these shades, and I don't really want to deal with all these shades. Now, the question here becomes, how do we get into our skin tones? Let's look at, like, this is grabbing an orange, so let's grab, I would normally go Caribbean Coral, but actually let's try that orange. Obviously, it's too orange right now, but we can work through that. And then we need probably something up here. And again, it matters what colors you're looking for, like what you're trying to blend to. See, that red actually works because we have blending up here is going to blend less intensely, but we could use a different color too. We're going to use a magenta. It's probably too bright. We could look down here. We could find closest color, filament. I don't like the skin here, but we could use like this neon pink, which is pretty close. And then we can bring the orange up and set the skin tone a little bit better. Obviously, we need to do something about the darker areas of the orange because it's really not orange. We could change this to Caribbean Coral here. Might be better. It's a little bit more tan. But then the pink's really pink. So there's trade-offs. We're not done. We're not done with the skin blending. We should be able to get the skin blending a little bit better here. See, even just bringing the black up, though it gets rid of our brown, does work. And then here, I do think we want a little bit of yellow, like a light yellow here, to blend into this like blue-green. And then maybe a cyan. I have this, the translucent cyan or Prussian Azure Blue maybe. Here, there you go. That's pretty good. Gives us our green-blue color, blends up into this nicely. We can choose how heavy we want the hair to be, how black the hair should be, whether we want one layer or two. Again, it's a dark shade. And then we could look for a really dark brown here. Maybe the black cherry here. Let the brown, the black show through a bit. We could do a black cherry, or we could do like a more opaque brown, like a got a couple of chocolate browns. Let's see, the Kexel chocolate brown. I have that. Put that here maybe. Still a little bit too orange here, so we gotta kind of work on that. And then it's just a matter of balancing out where we want our colors to go. Yes, Owl. Okay. Owl DIY. Yes, you will need more than 4 colors to achieve this result when printing. The HueForge, because it's all layer swapped, so everything's stacked one layer on top of another layer. And you can see that here even. You can see the different layers, the black blending up into the layers here. Each layer is visible. Because of that, you can't just use CMYK to get there. It won't work. You need more color. So here I can tint this a little yellower. So you can't, yeah, so you do in fact need more than 4 colors. However, I will show you, this is like the pink around the eyes and the face in here is a little bit, makes it a little bit tricky. We can adjust things over here, adjust how these are laid out, how the colors get selected, moved, and things like that. But, and in fact, actually, I think I was using the vanilla cream yellow here, or white here, because it gives you more of a glow. Let me show you how I actually did it. This is a little bit different. Okay, so here's the one that I'm printing right now. I actually did use an orange. This is actually only 6 colors. So you can't do 4, but you can do 6. So that is an option. And then 6 is not that hard to say. And in fact, I'm printing this on the XL, which only supports 5. But you know, basically when I finish printing the black, I tell it to swap to the orange. And then it's done. You know, like it's one swap on there. But if you were to do an AMS, you could easily print the first 4 colors, and then you could pull out the yellow, which doesn't get used again, and the cyan, which doesn't get used again, and replace those with your other 2 colors, and then you'd be all set. So, okay, so to reduce colors, so here's it's a really good question about how to reduce the number of colors, and that's what I spent a lot of time on the mesh core for. So for instance, you'll see here, I am not using a brown here. I'm using a green. I'm using this same bruised black that I have here as the, using that same color here above to darken and dim and brown the orange, because that it will do that. That's what I'm doing there. And I gave up on the brown. Like that means, okay, I'm not going to get a brown bar, but honestly it looks fine. It looks like it just painted blue, and if you're not looking at the original source image, you have no idea that that's not the color it's supposed to be. I will say, Owl, that 2 AMSs is the sweet spot. 8 colors, almost never do you need more than 8. It does happen, but you know it. You look at the image, it's like, okay, I might need more colors on this. But you can almost always get yourself down to 8 colors or less. Like 99% of the time, I'm 8 colors or less. So here I brought this very opaque orange in here. I can use a different color, but what I was finding is that like the Caribbean Coral, which is a really nice orange, just was too flat. I wanted her skin to be brighter. If I tried like the Polysonic orange, which I don't have, it was pretty good. The Prusament orange is actually redder than this, and I don't have a great color for it. So that's why I ended up going with the Safety orange, which is a 2.7 TD, so very low TD orange, which gives me this bright kind of glowing skin, which matches up here with only 1 color here. And then you can tweak how dark the shadows are, how orange she is, all that kind of stuff is tweakable by adjusting the slider. So one tip I'll give you is that very, very often you can blend a green in with underneath a red, so for black, green, red, or reddish, orangey, and get your skin tone and shadows and it'll look fine. Another option might have been a blue, but I tried that and this blue just doesn't, it's too blue. Even though it's a pretty high TD blue, it's too blue. Maybe could have used the chrominal blue, deep sea blue. That would have been okay, but it would have been another color. So I just went with the bruised black, which is already here. So Sem, it's a lot. There's a little bit of learning what will blend and give you the things you need. And part of that is like looking here and seeing that this skin is almost purple. And so it's clearly not actually, it's got a bluish tint to it. So it doesn't, and all we're really perceiving is the shadow. And so we don't care in the final image whether it's exactly the same shadow color as it is there. We just care that we have our image. That makes sense. And then if I wanted, I could choose to have more contrast here by lowering this and making this an extra black layer. I think it looks fine for her dress to be a little bit brighter. So those are kind of a few trade-offs for that. You can, okay, so when you're hot swapping a AMS unit, and like here, for instance, I decided I don't care that these aren't green. It doesn't really matter. They're fine. They don't need to be green. They just need to be plants back there, and this is stylized drawing, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, you just basically load your filaments, and then you tell in the slicer, you add the extra filaments in the slicer and map them to, when you go to print, you map them to the slots you want them to be in. And then you can either pull the fourth filament, like if you're printing this one, you'd go white, yellow, cyan, bruised black. You would then pull the bruised black as your fourth filament. And then when it gets there, when it passes the cyan, you would then replace, like when it passes the yellow, you could pull that out and put it in a black. And then when it passes the cyan, you can pull that out and put it in an orange, and then reinsert the bruised black. Or you could reinsert it when you know you're watching, so that it doesn't have to be passed. This does take some practice, and I will try to make sure I don't use too many colors here, but I always know that I'm not one for wanting these. I'm not going to put in this many colors here. There's almost never a need. These are good questions. These are really good questions. But yeah, I learned a little while ago that I had the option to use green on top of black and underneath my skin tone and get my shadows, and they look natural and okay. They are, I mean, if you look up real close, they're a little green, but it really, from any reasonable viewing distance, they look great. So this is printing right now on my XL. Okay, HRL asks, always been curious about hot swapping. Will it use the filament profile for the subsequent spools in a slot, or does it use the profile from the first spool in that slot? If you went into when you created the HueForge in the slicer, if you added those extra filaments and didn't just reuse the slot, didn't just say, okay, go back to 2, okay, go back to 3. If you said, I have a filament 5 and a filament 6, and you assign those filament profiles, and then you tell it what a slot in the AMS it's going to be in, it will use the filament profile that you used in the slicer. The temperatures, print speeds, everything. So as long as you've done it that way, as long as you created the filaments in the slicer and set their parameters and then assigned them to slots afterwards, mapped them to slots afterwards, it will use the parameters that you defined. Because if you think about it, it's already created the G-code at that point. It's created the G-code with the assumption that you can print 6 colors. And it doesn't care whether you have 1 AMS or 2 AMSs, it just knows there's 6 colors, or 4 AMSs. So once you do that, you're set. So that's the answer there. Yes, you can do that, and it works fine. Okay, I have some challenge images from people. While I'm pulling one up, go ahead. Oh, I will tell you there's a couple of bugs, known bugs. Blend Assistant. If you come into the Blend Assistant and you increase the number of steps before you assign colors, that means you haven't picked a color from here, to whatever color we want, skin tone. If you haven't done that and you increase the steps, it will crash. Simple solution right now is don't increase the steps until you've assigned colors to it. It works fine. I do have it fixed. This version is fixed. It would have worked and not crashed already. The other thing I've changed here is that you can click anywhere outside and they'll go away. You can also left click sometimes. It doesn't always work, but you can right click in one of these and then you click anywhere else and they go away. Right now they stick up there and they don't go away and they're kind of a pain. I will also add for when you press S and get your core fragments, right now you have to press S to get it away. I will add escape as another option to get rid of it. so that escape closes it as well. I consider that a bug because you're like sitting here and you're doing all this other stuff and you can't make it go away. The only way to make it go away is hit S or to actually drag and drop one of these things and then it'll go away. That I missed apparently. Yep. So, the other important note here, of course, is that you still are not required to use the colors in the image. I will say that sometimes, like if you're trying to make browns go into skin tones, then you're going to have a really hard time replacing that brown with something else just because you want to see a different color. But you absolutely could put in different colors here. You could make this background red with a different lighter red or a pink or something down below. Would be absolutely, like you can totally do that. You don't have to use the colors that are the original source image colors. It's not required in any way, shape, or form. And then of course there I just added a sparkly color shifting filament there, and we can go into renderlet and see that. But anyway, yeah, you can use whatever colors you want here. I could use green. If I just want a bright green here, I could do that. And then do a dark green at the top, or purple, or anything else. Or brown. So anyway, you are not limited to the colors that are in the original image, unless they are necessary for the blending. For like skin tone especially, if you're trying to hit skin. Now, if you wanted her to have purple skin, that's fine, you can do that. But if you wanted her to have, realistic skin tone, you're not going to be able to change colors underlying the skin tone. So she can have purple skin, but you're just not going to change the underlying color. Okay, let's bring up a new. The other bug is if you're in 0.08 millimeter layers, then I'm going to take it down to 4. I don't know why that's my default. Oh, from testing. Then if you hit Control N to open a new project, it will crash. That has also been fixed in my build. The only solution to that is don't open a new project at 0.08 layers when you don't have one opened. If you have one opened already, you're fine. If you don't have one opened, you got a problem. All right, I'm going to drop one in real quickly and just tell you that this is not a good one. This was an image that was sent to me, and I'm going to tell you right now that this is going to be very, very, very hard. And it's because the pink hair is too close to the skin tone, and you're going to have a really hard time getting your pink hair shades and your skin tones at the same time. Now, maybe you could do it in a non-color match way. You could probably get close. I will say pinks are hard. You maybe get close if you tried to. No, it's gonna be hard. I'm just gonna tell you, I've tried pink hair before. Pink hair with pink skin is very difficult because pink skin is. Oh, why did it go back to? Okay. Because they're going to be very, very similar shades. So I could get the pink hair or I can get the skin, but it's going to be very, very hard to get both. Oops, I'm looking at the wrong one. Right. So the hair looks kind of okay. It's not quite the right shade of pink. Let's grab some other pinks in here and make that blend kind of work. Okay, so we got the pink, but now the skin, it's just hard. We could potentially grab some of this red down here. And then we're going to have to do something to try to blend up to the skin, I guess. We can try to grab like the yellows, the browns and the yellows from the skin and make that work here. It's just going to be tricky because they overlap a lot. So you kind of want to be in the same range of colors for both the skin and the pink. And so I will tell you that I have tried pink hair a bunch of times. The best way to do pink hair is to recolor it to not pink, and then use that color in the mesh core or in the color core. So you'd be like, oh, I have pink hair here, but I don't want pink. I'm going to make it purple in an image editor, and then I can then do the face all by itself, and then the purple is totally out of range, or whatever, blue, whatever, and then you can make it pink in the color core. It is reasonably separated here. It's not awful, but it's not great. So I saw this one and immediately thought, oh, this is a good example of one that's not easy to do, because the colors overlap. They're in the very similar color spaces. So, and I'm not even trying to get the blue eyes. I mean, the blue eyes are doable, but I'm not trying to get those right now. Oh, I forgot that my, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, that's my note here. This is very, very difficult. Don't expect it to work. Pink hair, and they often go with like light freckled faces. Very, very difficult. Okay. So first downer to start with, but I've got more. Okay, let's try this one. This one was dropped to me on Discord. We'll reset this. Make it a little wider so I get a few more pixels to play with. All right, so it's overall pretty dark. So the first thing I often do with a color match image is I go to bright enhance 1, not that much. I go to about 0.3. It just brightens up the image a little bit and tends to make it a little bit easier to match. Now, all right, am I back? We do not have storms here. Am I back? Do you guys see me? It looks like my OBS just locked up. Okay, good. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so the difficult part, I was going through a lot, but the difficult part of this image is knowing what to share. Whether you're going to share the black or you're going to share the white. I think you have to share the black. I think it's what you have to do. And then you just have to accept that the white's going to be a little off. Now, this might be one where you could actually fix it by saying, like, color shifting it red a little bit so that the face goes red, but it's color shifting the horn. So maybe this is one where you just edit the image just a teeny bit, and you make this part a little reddish so that it stays down at the bottom. But this is basically how I would put it together, and then I would just tweak that particular issue. It's just these light parts not matching up is what I would tweak. But other than that, this is more or less how I do it. I will say that, you know, medium to dark skin tones are quite hard to do correctly. But this is how I would build it. I put the horn on top, blending up to gray. Now, you might be able to do something where you intermix them, and it might look good. This is just the way I go after stuff, and I'm just saying that it is a tricky one to get right, because of these various different skin tones and the grays here that are going to want to match up top. So here's one where, like, maybe image editing that to be a little bit pink or red would work. And then you don't have quite as many shades here. You probably do want like an orangey shade. Yeah, you want that orangey shade in the middle. And this one maybe you want, let's see if we want to C-Lab 2, or maybe you want a dot product. Nope. I think yeah, that's going to be too weighted to the brightness. It actually looks like we're going to miss that little bit in the middle there. Unfortunately, I missed that it locked up. But my end locked up, my OBS locked up. Everything, it should record still. It's just going to have a gap in the recording on YouTube. So, I mean, the HueForge file really for this is not that important. It's really just go to, you know, grab image colors and go from light to dark, and then dark to light. On color match, it should work quite well. Okay, you're in black. Oh, you're black, and have a lot of trouble getting you to not look patchy mess. Yeah. So there's a couple issues here. I don't know that I've worked on this quite a bit, skin tones. And what I'll say is that I've done some darker skin tones, but black is still difficult. And it's mostly because the shades you need are not available in high enough TDs for what you want. Let's look at one that should be easier with a different problem set. Well, that almost works. Okay. So, but yeah, it's absolutely correct. I've been getting darker and darker on my skin tones and learning things as I do it, but it's just hard. Um, it's a little bit easier in combo mode to do it than it is in color match because you're matching all these really close dark shades of color, and that's like a less sensitive area, so you're going to have more mismatching when you do that. It's a really good point, Jerome. I've tried really hard to go darker and darker skin tones. I'm still working on it. All right, so Fuli sent me this file. The issue he's having is not so much getting the colors, I think. Like, it's not that hard in color match to, you know, grab some ears, grab a metal, you know, and get some shades there. The problem comes that you need all these shades of white down here. We can add a better white. It's actually not too bad here. That just making these all kind of separate is difficult. Not actually too bad doing it this way. Now the ears are going to be a bit proud. We can probably bring them down a bit. We don't need that much. If we have a, say we have a 2 TD red. Actually, there's plenty of 1 TD reds. I know that Fuli would have them. Because he likes his dark stuff. Dark colors. And then just this gem, or this tag here, getting some colors to it. There, that looks better. But we do have some issues here around like the fringe of the face. They're popping up into that area up top. Probably the best thing to do here is just to lower the white here. But we do have, like, still this one is really matching up to the gold rather than down at the bottom where we kind of want it to be. And I think if we match here, we're going to have trouble. Yeah, it's just not going to work right. So I think that's probably the best we're going to do. With this, we could try color pop on this one. Let's try color pop. Color pop separates the mesh into 2 sections, a color section and a not color section. Let's go to standard. The bottom is going to be your black and white section. By default, the bottom is the black and white section and the top is a color section, but we need to increase our tolerance here so that we grab things. So, but we can't see what we've grabbed. So we need a white here. There. Now you can see that we actually have the cats pretty good here. Like, they actually look really good. Their blending is nice. Use our polysonic white to get a little bit more blend on it, take out that gray. And then it's just a matter of bringing in a red. We use real colors here. Here's a polysonic red, for instance. And maybe some black underneath it to give it a little bit more depth and shading. And there we go. That actually works quite well. We don't have this gold here. We can try for the gold. That's going to be a little bit more difficult here. To get like the dark part of the gold, it's going to want to be down. We could lower our tolerance a little bit, see if we can get some more of that metal there. We can, and still keep it pretty good, but then that's just, it's kind of corrupting the red here. So it would kind of be a trade-off. I think the big thing, Fuli, is you kind of got to just decide in color match. Like, you basically have to say, I'm going to commit a bunch of area to the black and commit a bunch of area to the red. Like, it's just like this. You got to go through the whole scale here before it's going to work. I don't even know if I need that white at all. So you just grab some of this darker red down here at the bottom. But you have to give yourself like the whole continuous range. That's actually one of the things that I think people have the most trouble with, which is you kind of just need to give yourself a continuous range to hit some of these colors. Like, to get a nice smooth blend here, you kind of just need a continuous range. Which a lot of people want to like break it up, and if you break it up, it generally doesn't look very good. There we go. I grabbed the brown here, which helped a little bit. We do still have some issues, like this part is supposed to be red, but it's not, and this part shouldn't be red, and it is. So I think we need even darker red there. But then why is this part matching to red? It's very questionable. That's the wrong one. Which one am I looking at? That one. It says it's not matching to red. There it is. No, that's red. It says it's not matching to red, but I'm definitely seeing red there. There. Okay. Anyway. All right. Any other questions? Was there someone telling me that let's see. I've got this. All right. Actually kind of works. Okay, so I've seen this image before, and the image is a little tricky because, okay, so the issue here, I mean, the image looks okay like this. The problem here, though, is we have this yellow that we want to kind of blend into this blue, it's like a gray color, and to get this smooth blend, you have to blend directly from one to the other. But then we also have this light color that it's just, that should be the background, kind of. It looks like that should be the background. So the way I would probably go about this, my initial instinct is to, again, bring the black up to the middle. I bring the black to the middle a lot. Bring the white to the bottom. And really what we're looking for is like this greenish color here. The problem that you've seen, and we get our dark shade here, so we can blend up into the figure, get it nice and dark, is we kind of want this yellow down here. But if we put the yellow down here, then it's not gonna, like, it's interfering with this smooth blend in the background. So, let's see here. So the question is, if we were to, and then it won't blend nicely, like if I bring this in here, we can get a nice blend here, but then it kind of corrupts the background a little bit. Makes everything green, which we don't really want to be green. Put that, I don't think we want that on top there. Yeah, we can come down here. Try to hit some of these color points. That's not terrible. We've lost our kind of bluish gray, but we could probably get that back, actually, yeah, like that, to some extent. We could or maybe get that back on the color core. But the problem, see here, is that we're not going to be, like, it's going to be hard to get all these intermediate colors that are blending with the yellow. With, you know, it has to be stacked with these colors. It does look like the back is light enough compared to the foreground that it actually kind of works. And we get a decent blend. But again, real shallow gradients are also going to be, you might, let's go down to 0.02 millimeter layers. We can get a little bit better of a gradient, but it's still going to be difficult to hit our fine gradients that we really want. Maybe we actually need to go back to white here. So you see, like, we're getting this kind of toggling here. I mean, we could potentially flip this over. We kind of have the same issue here if we flip that over, and then we don't actually hit our white anymore. We have this shade here that's kind of in between. So we can do that and try to get a little bit more. But like, it's going to be hard to get everything blending smoothly together. That's just going to be difficult to do. But here, now, okay, so we've done this. This is the same color, so we can just get rid of some layers of that. We can get rid of some layers of that. Maybe we want... and then we can come over here and actually color it. This is black on top. We probably actually, that means we're going to want to do a couple of disabled layers. Don't know why it's showing not enabled. So we'll grab our white in the middle, move our black to the top. And then we're looking for intermediate colors here. The Bamboo Basic Gray makes the most sense here. But we're going to need a darker color here. Like, again, this is a nice spot for the Brugger's Black, probably. Might not be dark enough, though. We might need a really dark shade here. It can be hard to get a lot darker than that. I do have... Fighter Jet Blue maybe here instead? No, I think it's just going to have to go up. It's the tricky part. And then a green of some sort. Like an army green maybe. It's a low TD, but maybe an army green here. And then I know what yellow this is. This is the yellow bird. I made it a 4 on purpose. And then we're just missing the background bluish, which we could maybe even just grab the gray blue, or if we wanted more of a blue, we could or a green blue. We could do like a cyan. That's too much. Like a blue gray. A little yellow to get the green in it. Something a bit like that, though. Again, it's not easy to get this exactly right. We can kind of get this blend right or this blend right. It's hard to get both. Does that make sense? You guys got real quiet. And that's a 0.02. We'll go back to 4, and that means we can come up a little bit there. That disabled the wrong layer. There we go. Just make this here. There we go. Okay. But yeah, this is the hard part here. Like, and here, I don't have... Do I have a good color for this? I think I have like a gray. Like one of these silver grays. King Rune gray maybe here. Is really what we're looking at. In the background. Pinged again, did I? Alright, so in terms of, I got a question in Discord, what tutorials would I suggest for color match? I suggest the work-alongs. They won't look exactly like this. But the work-along videos, there's the color match Colorful Frog is kind of like the full scale. And then there's also one I've done, let's go back here, on the contents. Contents. The most recent video I did, which has been quite a while, I'll post it here. Just a sec. Oh, you do it here, right. This one, which is about how the mesh core works in general. Now, if you do have more shades, so it is possible to have multiple shades here that you can use to hit even more colors. If you do have more shades available to you, then like if you do have like I think I have a stealth gray. Yeah, Paramount Stealth Gray. Mine's like a 1.1 that I could maybe use to get some more of these colors in here. Like, there's other options for getting more colors. It's like a 1.1, I think. You go that way too and get a little bit more of the detail out here. Let's see. I think I have one more maybe. I have this lion. Well, that looks terrible. All right, so we got this lion here. So honestly, this might be good in just a standard. Just want like a brown, like a chromal brown maybe. And then like just we need a little bit of a yellowish in here. Oh, the terracotta, that's a good option. And then probably again, Polysonic White, which I use all the time. And then bring this black up a bit, or maybe not. I mean, okay, I get the issue here, right? The background is it's kind of distracting on this image without it separated out. So that could be a case where like, okay, I got it basically here, but let's go to color match. Oops. So here's something to show you. You come to standard mode, you're back in standard mode where we were, and then you click clear core history, and then you come to color match, and it'll copy them over. But if it doesn't, you just hit the arrow key over. Move the arrow to copy them all over. We can move this down. Look the same. And now we really want we want to put basically below the black, we want to put like this background color and a couple of shades of background color. So we get like, 'cause it's a modeled background, we just want to separate it from the foreground. We do have an issue though, because the lion's face has these lighter colors to it. That are going to match with the background, and that's the problem we're running into here, is that some of these colors are matching down low, and so the best shot is to try to just bring them up like this, but it can be hard to do so. We can get rid of these and see if we've got the background enough dulled. Does look like it's been dulled quite a bit. So that's probably how I'd go about this one. Doing the best I can. It is hard when all the colors are very similar. I think you're going to get better detail in standard mode. Standard mode just is really excellent for great detail, but you're going to have a hard time with the background, not getting like making the background work. Could maybe put the gray on top here to get it as part of the face. Nope. Oh, maybe if we took it off the bottom. Yeah, it's not really working. Same problem. So I would probably have to say like something like this, where you can see the line, it's separate, but like the background is basically just gone. When the colors are really similar, it becomes tricky, because color match, and it's something I want to look at, and this is one maybe you check some other color match modes. This might actually be a little bit better here. Dot product maybe could be better. It's worth checking some other modes here to see if you like. Maybe C-Lab is got better color. Probably not. Probably not. HSL, though, honestly, is not awful. Yeah. When all the colors are super tightly packed, again, it's hard for color match to separate them. I mean, it knows they're different, but it doesn't really know that it's different. Then we come over here. We're still with the same color. Let's bring the black down. We really need gray in here. So we'll grab like this gray. Too much gray. We'll grab like an 8 TD. I have my, or 8 or 9 TD gray just to dim it a little bit. Yeah, that kind of works. Or the chrominal, not the shadow gray. I mean, I think the shadow gray is not going to work. It's going to be too much. Yep. We want the penumbra gray. There you go. And then we could bring in a browner color here, or we could bring this brown up and maybe bring like the dark cherry or the dark brown below to differentiate. Or we could say, or the black cherry here, or we could say that we know that we want kind of a more orangey color, and so we could put a more orange up here. Maybe a yellow. Oh, let's see, try this orange. Nope, I think that's better. There, that's maybe a little better. So, yeah, these are legit hard ones. The biggest problem here is that the background is gray. It's a different color, but the face has that color in it. So again, this is one where maybe you went and recolored the background. You could do a background removal, a high quality background removal, and recolor the background. Just something outlandish pink. Then you could make the background pink and just use grays and whites to display it, and then the line would pop out better. All right. It's been an hour and 10 minutes or so. I'm happy to answer more questions, assuming anyone's still here. Did get changed to. All right, is anyone still watching? I'm not sure. I haven't seen a message for about 7 minutes. Okay, there we go. Okay, I was not seeing anything. All right. Are there any more questions about HueForge in general, about changes in this version? I will say, so anytime you've got an image like this, it's just hard because the colors are so close, and yeah, the face overlaps with the background. I would like, so one thing I'm trying to do is some basic depth mapping, so that you could say these are background colors and these are foreground colors, but that's not coming until at least 9.2. 0.9.2 is going to be the one that hopefully has that feature in it, where it'll do a basic depth map and then allow you to say, here's my split between foreground and background, and then you'd be able to say, okay, everything down here is it's effectively 2 color match ranges. You'd say from like here to here is background, and you'd be able to say where the mask for the background is in the image. And then it would say, okay, so everything up here is one set of color match ranges, and everything down here is another set, and they're separate. And all the pixels that are in the back half get matched to the bottom, and all the pictures of the top half get matched to the top. So that is something I'm planning on doing that would allow an image like this to be done more easily. But I'm not there, and I am not going to get that out in this version. Midjourney prompts tips. Well, I mean, cartoon stuff is always a little bit easier. I do like specific like comic book artists as a prompt, and then anything that where you're like painting or like you can do realistic images, but I just think they're generally harder to get. So yeah, I like to do things where it's like a comic book in the style of this comic book artist, in the style of that comic book artist, or I will intentionally limit it to be 3 colors or 4 colors as part of the prompt. Trying to think if there's anything in particular that I do. Yeah, like the one I was working on, as you showed. I also had another one here. This one, I did it because this is a high key one, so there's color close, and I didn't even try to do it as a color match. I did it as a standard to get, because all the colors are so close, they're all going to match together, and they're all basically just luminance. And I'm not matching this exactly. It's not perfect. Her hair's the wrong color, but you can't see this image. You don't know. If I, zoom in so you can't see what the image is, and you look at this one, it looks great. It's only when you kind of like, oh, it doesn't look exactly like her hair and stuff. And you can. I did a look at it in color match. If I turn off edit image, it gets her hair a little bit better and stuff. It's not bad, but I don't think it's good enough to go through the extra effort of this. Custom HueForge GPT in ChatGPT? I have not. Are there custom HueForge GPTs in ChatGPT? I'm unaware. I always assume that there aren't, and that ChatGPT doesn't care about me. So please do tell. The space here. Good question. So what the saturation marker is actually telling you is these two layers are close enough in color that they're the same. It's off by 1 channel value. But because of rounding issues and things like that, you could actually have a couple layers that are rounded to the same, and then a different layer here. It can actually happen at the bottom too, especially like if you have a really high TD. So like if I were, let's grab a color here, and then it doesn't really make any difference. Grab this color here, and if I were to let's change it to a image color so I don't mess with the real color, and just like blow up its TD to like 40, right? When I start raising it, it might tell me that these are all the same color, like that. Let's go to 100 then. As it goes higher, it should start being more like you're there. Like you might get saturation before you've actually, see it here, we're starting to get saturation because it's just not changing enough to register as being a different color. Sometimes you'll get saturation on the black because it's not moving away from black fast enough. So it's not, strictly speaking, it's not saturation, and that's like, it's like a misnomer. It's not actually saturation. It is that the color is not changing very much at all from one to another. I'm going to need you to link me what you're talking about, Matrix. I can play with that. I have ChatGPT. So if I have a new chat, what do I do? What do I do to... You're saying that there's a custom GPT in here that's for... that's specifically HueForge? HueForge artist. Oh, generates 3-color art paintings. This one's Mid-Journey Master. I see. HueForge friendly images. Let's start a chat. Oh, okay. What do we want to see? Lion in front of a survey. So no more than 5 colors, and I would like it to be realistic. Now, I honestly don't think you need to do blocky colors, though I will say that having like bands of color works well with the layered nature of a HueForge, whereas really smooth gradients are best when you're like just committing to that and not a lot of colors. Like you're gonna do better with really smooth gradients when you're just trying to do black and white or just a couple colors or just a color scheme than you are if you try to actually do like a bunch of colors. So like that would be you know, like the redhead I did, the standard redhead. Here, where I was just trying to blend all these colors smoothly and I wasn't worrying about hitting the yellow here or the exact color of her hair. Okay, so it's making the image. Yes, that's super stylized. I mean, I guess this is good practice for just setting up your mesh core. So yeah, so what I would do here is not this. I would just, so when I do HueForge prompts, I will prompt it and then I'll say, oh yeah, you know what? It's a problem. Like I'm gonna have trouble matching, like his shirt color is too close to his skin color and they're gonna get all mixed up. So okay, let's change the color of his shirt. So I'll say, okay, do this with a blue shirt. And then do this with a blue shirt and red hair, and a blue shirt, red hair, and green, you know, like that kind of thing. Here, so here's a one where that's not bad. So if I were to look at this image in HueForge, this one's pretty straightforward actually. It's a good practice image. It's a pretty good practice image. We'd start with our blue, and if you're doing color match, start with blue, well the dark blue probably. Oh no, we'll blend up. Yep, we'll blend up. So we'll start with a light blue, go to a dark blue. And then we don't really need, actually, so we could just reduce this. I actually know I have a 2.5, so we'll just use that. And then we can do this dark brown, then an orange, or orangey brown. That's probably like about a 4. And then a yellow. Don't even need that white. Yeah, that's pretty easy. So there you go. That's a good way to practice. Interesting, there's like all these little speckles in here because it's not actually a solid color. If we zoom in, yeah, these are all, oh, that's an awful compression on that image. But anyway, yeah, pretty easy to set that up. So that would be decent to practice with. And then you could, you know, increase complexity. It actually did a pretty good job of agreeing to like do my different shades of color here. And then it would just be a matter of matching up. So find closest filament, we'll do this Creality blue. This will be like the Leviathan green blue maybe. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And then we'll do a black. And then a dark brown, which would be like the Epax dark brown. We'll do yeah, probably the King Rune brown will be fine here. And then like a yellow. Yeah, probably just do a yellow here. There. And now we've got it done, more or less. You could do an actual yellow here. Get it brighter. Bring the orange up. That might be too bright, so maybe we come to an orange. Nope, that's too orange. Maybe this King Rune orange is the right color. Like a burnt orange is the right color. So yeah, that's probably how I'd go about doing that. That's fine. You know, this one wasn't super highly rated, which kind of makes sense to me. It's not amazing, but it does work. Yeah, there you go. That can work, but that kind of thing, like limiting your colors, doing block shading, doing any cartoon style is going to help. or like just committing to, like if you're doing a photograph, just committing to, like, I'm more worried about getting the smooth gradients than I am about the color accuracy, the exact colors. I'm trying to think if I have anything in particular here. I mean, you certainly can do, like I did this image here, like hyper realistic. This doesn't look good here, but this hyper realistic image, there's one of them. Like, you can do it, but I'm mostly worried about the skin blend and less worried about the exact, like the water being black and such. I knew I could blend the plants and then I could blend the skin, and that was pretty much what I was worried about here. So you can't, I mean, but you can certainly, like this, you can just pick color. You also, when you get your images, you'll get a set, and you can kind of look at them and say, that one's going to be hard and this one's going to be easy. But yeah, comic book style is often a really, really good way to get going. Like I have this one that I did, comic book style. This was trying to get a darker skin tone. Let's see here. I have this one, purple ball gown. You know, where the skin tones are a little blockier, and then the dress is nice and smooth, and you can kind of work between those two. There, that would be a more what's the word I'm looking for? A more Polynesian skin tone. So this was another, it was just like a comic book style. But then like you find a style that doesn't even like match comic book exactly, and you'll just be like, oh, I'm going to go down that one because it's much closer to what I wanted, or I know I can HueForge this more easily, kind of thing. That's always like a thing I consider, is how HueForgeable is it, and you do get a sense for that over time. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap up. I think they're also maybe finishing up my AC now. So I'm going to wrap up. It's about 4. Thank you all for coming out and hanging out and asking some really good questions. These are great questions. I will see you guys next week, I think, for U.S. office hours. I might not. Next week is the week before Remurf. So the Remurf will be the end of the week, and I will be doing a lot of prep. So I haven't decided yet. I will certainly not have EU office hours the weekend after Remurf, or the Tuesday after Remurf. I'm flying back on Monday. I'm not going to do office hours. So probably I'll just skip the next 2 weeks of office hours, and then I'll come back at it. But I do hope to have a video out this week for using the new version, for like a new end-to-end for version 090. All right, thank you all for coming. Have a good day or evening, and I'll see you guys in a couple weeks, or at Remurf if you're able to come. Love to see you. Come by the booth, say hello, tell me you're on the Discord on the channel, and I will happily talk to you, and we'll have a fun time.